Yes, there we go. Right, everybody's muted, I'm afraid, for a moment, but hopefully you can hear me still. Okay. Um, Let me just get my window up for PowerPoint. Okay, I'm just gonna well, I'm briefly saying hello. You've got me on video, I'm assuming. Yes, you can. Yeah, okay. Um, I'll put my screen up in a second, but I just wanted to introduce myself. Um, I work with Phil on some of the development work at Warwick and Worcester, and alongside some other sessions that we promoted that I'm sure Phil will talk about later on. I wanted to talk briefly about how clubs can promote themselves. And there are sort of three key ways that I'm going to talk about that in the next hour. I've presented this through some slides because I think that's going to be easier to follow, but I'm going to try and leave some time near the end where if you've got specific questions about how to do this and want me to demonstrate something specifically, you can do. And essentially, it's all through the lens of uh, me being a bowler at Rubery RSJC. So some of you will know that club, and some of you will be less familiar with it because I don't think you're all Midlands people. Um, and my experiences there. So let me just get my slide up first of all. Um, so I'm going to share, uh, get the right window. Here we go. Okay. Does that look correct for everybody? You can see a slide, yeah? Thumbs up, anyone, please? Yep, Brill. Thank you, Elaine. Right, so yes, so I joined very briefly. I joined RSJC as a member in 2018. We had about 35 people at the club. We then had COVID, as everybody did, and kind of weathered that. And then in 2021, we were starting up properly bowling again, and we did an open day. And as far as I know, the club had never really properly done a heavily advertised open day. Um, we did an open day the following year as well. And I think in the end we've done 3 years running of open days, but in the last 2 years we haven't. Partly because people trickle in whether we do them or not, but partly because we've reached a point now where we've grown from 35 to 80 members. We've got 15 teams, games going on every night of every day of the week except for Mondays. And it's got to the point where if we aggressively attract more bowlers, we eventually don't have league teams for them to play in. So we have, social bowling that goes on as well. But we meet demand as it comes to us, but we're not quite as aggressive in kind of doing open days as we used to. So I'm going to talk about three things, as I say. So this is me. I'm Jerome, and that's my email address. We can share that at the end as well. Um, so the first of the three things that I want to talk about is this idea of having a website. Now, I at Rubery, we have a website for our club, and really we use it for relatively minimal static information. So at the very least, you could get away with a website that just has your contact details, maybe the email address of your secretary or your main contact, and a phone number and a map or something like that. Um, a lot of people, if they're looking to do something like bowling, or if they're trying to work out where they're going because they've got an away match somewhere they've never played before, they won't necessarily need any more than that. And when I say static, this is probably information that you can have up there that might not change all through the year. So I wouldn't personally use a website to post news on. That's not what we've done, really. I wouldn't use it for blogging, for like weekly updates or anything like that. I'll come to where I do think you might be interested in doing that, which is Facebook, because I think that meets your target audience a bit more easily. Um, so our website is made very simply. If you if you want to have a look at it whilst we're watching this, or if you want to have a look at it later, hopefully, if you just Google RSJC Crown Green Bowls Birmingham or something like that, you will come up with our website. And I made it very simply with a free service that Google offer, which is called Google Sites. And if you Google Google Sites, it will come up, and it's a free service. Um, and it's very, very much aimed at people like yourselves who, well, I'm assuming that not all of you are incredible webmasters and use the internet a lot to build websites, but if you don't, that's the kind of people it's aimed at, who want to just make a quick website and have a quick presence. So that's our web address at the bottom there, rsjcbowls.co.uk. That's because we've bought a web address that the website points to. But you'll see here, we don't have lots and lots of information on here. We have a homepage that's got some sort of quite basic information. And if this was actually on the web page, you could scroll down and see the map and things like that on Google Maps. Um, we've managed to include a Google Calendar in there so that everybody can see what's going on at the club, largely for members, really. I have a one page called latest results, which basically just is a list of links to all the bowls results websites pages. We've got a link to laws of the game, which is just the BCGBA laws of the game. And every year I do like a little annual write-up of what a wonderful year we've had at our club. But that's what I mean by it being relatively static. It can kind of sit there all year with that information because it's just standard information. Um, and we don't need to fiddle around with it. And it's just the key information really about what we do, how to find us, that kind of thing. So that's what it looks like to a visitor of the website. When you're actually using Google Sites to build your site, you've got on the left, you have like a display where it shows you what you're building. And then on the right, it's got a quite simple setup where you can insert things like text boxes or images. You can create new pages by clicking on the pages button up there. And themes is just where you get to choose what the whole website looks like, essentially. But there are loads of preset themes. So this theme was quite a nice one with a bit of pink on it. And you can kind of drop and drag your logo in and things like that. If you've ever done anything like, created an email where you've had to type some text and attach a document or drag and drop something or anything like that, then you should, in theory, be fine with this. It might take a bit of fiddling around with. Um, I would encourage you to have a go, if you don't already have a website, to try creating one with Google Sites. And then the idea is that the second session that we've got, which we're going to do in 2026, so that people are ready pre-season if they want to create one of these, I can kind of do as a bit of a troubleshooting clinic, but have a go at it first. So you've got some questions and you've got some things to show me and go, and you can say, "Oh, I tried, but I got a bit stuck. Can you give us a bit of a hand?" So we'll advertise the date for that second session in a few months, but so that might give you some time to play with it. The other thing I'd say is do play with it if you make one of these Google sites. Don't worry about breaking the internet or breaking your site or anything like that. It's better to play and try and work out and figure out what you're doing like that than kind of just to be worried about the idea that you might break something or it might not go well or whatever. Okay. Oh, I'm just admitting Heather. Heather's just on her way in as well. So I've just seen she was waiting. Um, so hello, Heather. I'm not sure if you're here yet. I've just been talking about Google Sites.
Hello, sorry for the
Hello.
delay getting in. Thanks for letting me in.
That's all right. Um, sorry, I've just thought, are we recording this at the moment, Phil? Have we remembered to record? Oh, yes, we are screen sharing. Um, how do I get this to, how do I check if we're recording? Is it automatically recording, Phil?
If it's any benefit, Jerome, it says here in the top left of my screen, recording.
Okay, oh, that's perfect then. Okay, I'm assuming that means it is. Oh yes, I can see it says recording. Okay. I'll continue then. Right, so I've been talking about Google Sites. Uh, Next thing I'd like to talk about is Facebook, and I genuinely think this is probably where you're going to get more traction and more eyes on information about your website than on a sorry, on your club than on a website. So Facebook is where we have generated a lot of the interest in our club and a lot of and I say that not just about bowlers, but within our community as well. Um, stick your hand up if you are familiar with Facebook and have used it yourself, personally. Have you got a Facebook account? Stick your hand up. Okay, a few hands going up there. So if you haven't before, get somebody to sit with you and help introduce you to it, or you can show somebody else at your club potentially this recording where I'm talking about setting up a Facebook page. So pages are um, uh, a way of your club having a kind of a presence online on Facebook. It's not it's you have a page for an organization or a company or something like that, and you're broadcasting out to the world basically. If you've ever used Facebook groups, it's not the same. A Facebook group is different because anybody can post to it that is a member of that group. A Facebook page is just you, your club, sending out messages to the people that follow you and have kind of subscribed to your page. So if you go to Facebook, what you're looking for is on the left-hand side. If you expand the menu down from the top left, you'll get to a bit here, which I'm showing here, where it says Pages. If you click Pages, it will take you through to a page all about pages. I know, a bit confusing. And then you want to click Create New Profile or Page, and then you're asked what kind of page you want to make, and you will want to click Public Page. And as I say, I can show you kind of the process for this later on, but this is just a neater way to show you this briefly now. And then what you end up getting is a page like this that you can populate with new posts, new little stories as often as you want. So we've put on our logo. You get like a picture bit at the top where we've got a nice photo showing kind of the green and the numerous people. This was one of our club comps. I think it was one of our triples comps, lots of people there. And you can see there as well, it says we've got 216 followers, which might not seem like masses, but those are probably quite significant people for us within the community. A lot of them will be our members, but a lot of them will be people that are interested in what we're doing, possibly local councillors, people that have come across us various ways. And those people will kind of be fed our content every time they open Facebook and we've got something new that we've posted essentially. We also follow 50 people, and I would imagine most of those are other local bowls clubs, so that we can see what people like Old Cross and Ulster and all sorts of clubs are doing as well, and kind of share a bit in that kind of online community. So what you get when you have a Facebook page is you get something called insights, which is quite nice because it shows you a bit of information about the kind of stories you're posting. And I just wanted to show you this very briefly, to give an idea of how many people might see a story that you post. So, at the top here, I've got a story that I posted about the fact that short mat has started again in October, and 816 people saw that post. And that's probably because I also posted this story into one of our local community groups, which has 16,000 or 19,000 members, you see. So you kind of can post your stories into other Facebook groups as well. We have, like a story here about the fact that the green's closed. Okay, that might sound like it's just useful to our members to know that they can't use the green anymore, but also it's a way of signaling close down, but also the fact that what we do is seasonal and that people might look out for us in March when we open up again. And the photo, has photos of loads of our volunteer members and things like that. And obviously, we celebrate things like uh, cup competitions and things like that. So you might be thinking, if we have a Facebook page, what kind of thing do we want to put in Facebook posts? So the first thing I'd say is you would probably want to be aiming to post something. And when I say something, it could be something very small, at least once a week. And in a minute, I'll scan quickly through a load of slides that will show you the different kinds of stories that we have, and you'll see what I mean by them often being quite quick stories. I would say in any post that you put on Facebook, always use an image because research has been done that, in the past that has demonstrated that social media posts that have images in them are more visible than anything that is just text, partly because it takes up more room when it comes through on a feed, but partly because we as humans respond to images, we respond to imagery, and I would, as much as possible, aim for photos with people in them, smiling people, not grumpy bowlers who've just lost and are storming off, kicking their woods into the ditch. The people that are smiling because it's their first ever win. Team photos. Some people eating scones and having their cups of tea and things like that. Um, I often think I could probably get better photos of matches because they're quite wide angle shots sometimes with lots of green on them and little tiny ant people walking around, and actually that doesn't necessarily demonstrate very much. But some of the best performing posts we've had have been uh, the kind of things that have like this kind of shot, basically two people stood next to each other having a chat over old times or the history of the club or something like that. Anything with that kind of thing. Um, if you're gonna do this, have a Facebook page like this, it might be that when your AGM comes up, if you haven't already done it, you just make it clear to people that okay, next season we are going to be taking more photos and we would like to put them on Facebook. And just to flag up with people that does anybody not want to be in these photos and not want to be on social media? And it might be for specific safeguarding reasons, or it might just be preferences. Obviously, in terms of children, that might be an issue. But you'll find that 99% of your members are quite happy to, have their photo on Facebook because it doesn't aggrieve them either way, and it benefits the club. Um, so yeah, in your photos, uh, try and show off the diversity of all the richness of everybody you have at your club, like young people, older people, racial diversity, diversity of mobility, all that kind of thing. Um, because then your community will see that they are represented in your club. They will see people like them, and they will drift towards you. If that's what you're after, if you're looking for new bowlers. Each of these little stories that you post, what you'll be looking for is some kind of angle, whether it's something you're celebrating, whether you're talking about the fact there's green work going on. It might be that you want to do a slightly passive aggressive photo of your 5 volunteers who turned up for the green work day, when everybody knows you have a membership of 100 bowlers and maybe there should have been more than 5. Um, so you read between the lines sometimes. Um, it could be something that's quite quirky, as we'll see in a moment. Big birthdays, like if you've got somebody reaching their 80th birthday and you're having a celebration at the club, something like that. And also think about all the non-bowls things about your club, like who does the gardening, who does the surrounds? Can you celebrate that? Um, who has worked tirelessly to get some funding, and therefore you've got some new huts that you want to show off? Who are the people that are, sorting out the guttering and all that? Who's your coach? Who's training? All of those kind of things. There's a lot of stuff that happens at bowls clubs that in some ways nothing to do with bowling, but it's about your community and your family of bowlers. Um, each of these stories, I would say that they don't need to be more than 200 words, really, partly because on a Facebook page, that will disappear off the bottom of the thing, and somebody will have to click read more anyway. So anything from 20 to 50 words is fine because it's just keeping a trickle of information about your club. But I would suggest, if you're promoting the fact that you've got your club champs coming up, obviously people need to know the time. The places should be obvious, but the time and place, the cost, and what the format's going to be, and any web links that are relevant and things like that. Details and accurate details are sort of quite important. So when we started doing the Facebook page a few years ago, I said to myself, right, I'm going to do personally every Sunday, I'm going to write a weekly league roundup. And I don't know if anybody from Ulster is here, but they do something like this, and it's quite detailed and long. And I was literally rounding up, the results in a write-up of all 15 of our teams. And it was taking me a couple of hours to kind of go through the league, all our results and try and work out what was worth talking about and all this kind of thing. And as you can see here, it's quite a lot of text. And I would make up a little graphic, an image of a photo of one of those games. And so last year, I tried a different format for talking about our actual league games. And I've made it a lot more casual. So that instead of doing one story, I might have two or three of these each week, maybe, where I might be at one game and I've taken a photo and I've talked about, the B side of that game and then how our A side did as well. And it just allows me to keep the presence going and keep up the story about our ongoing bowling, but without giving me 2 hours worth of work every Sunday night to do it. It's much quicker, much shorter, and people don't seem to respond to this any worse or less than they did when I did the huge, great big long write-up. So don't always think you have to write up a huge long story like that. Somebody's popped something in the chat. AI next year, Jerome. Yeah, well, maybe, yes. We'll come to that maybe later if you've got any ideas of how to use AI for this kind of thing. We obviously use the Facebook page to promote stuff to our own bowlers, but because members of the public can wander in and watch as well, it's fine for that to have that public presence. So yeah, we I can't remember last year whether I pre-promoted our internal comps quite as much as I'd had in previous years. Um, yeah, this is quite a fun one I started. Bizarre things we find on the green. And I sarcastically called it number 345 because I haven't done 345 of these kind of stories. But we do all, I'm sure, find very bizarre things on our green. We live next to a park where all kinds of stuff gets thrown over the fence. We've had school ties, we've had disemboweled rats. I think that wasn't, the locals. I think that was a bird or something. But this kind of thing's quite funny and gets a laugh and gets a few likes, gets a few clicks. Just because you're not bowling doesn't mean you can't be posting about the club and making sure people know that you're still there. So this is my attempt at a snowman a few years ago, or last year, in fact. Obviously, where you do have club successes and you're winning cups and you're going to the presentation evenings, make sure you get a decent photo of your cup and your team kind of all holding on to it and anything like that that you have. It's not every year that we come away with silverware. So when we do, we like to make sure everybody knows about it and that our members know about it. And yeah, things about what happens when your season ends, what kind of things are you doing? I know some clubs do bridge or skittles, or as we do short mat in our wife's church, in fact, which happens to just be next door to the club at RSJC, and we have like a league format that we run in there. The other thing I'd say is part of the purpose of having this profile online is to help build relationships with counsellors and funders and other people that you want to be working with. So when I wrote to my local councillor and said, can you support um, us with some finance to help cover the costs of renting the church for short mat? And they did. It seems obviously the nice and honest, decent thing to do is then to say at the bottom of this post here, thanks to Councillor Peter Turner and Worcestershire County Council. And the reason that's bright blue is because that on Facebook will be a link where it clicks through to the council. And similarly, at the top, short mat has resumed in St Chad's, Rubery. That would click through to the St Chad's Church page as well. And that, just gives a bit of information about what we're doing. So I'll probably do a post about the fact we've got our Christmas short mat night coming up soon, where we kind of bowl to Christmas puddings and things like that. So lots of fun. And then what I was going to talk about also very briefly was I mentioned the fact that we have a Facebook community group in Rubery where we are, which has 19,000 members on it. And you get all kinds of things on there posted, from crime to lost dogs to accidents to opportunities and events and all kinds of things. So sometimes we have a Facebook post that we have made about our club that we feel has some external profile that we want to talk about. So we will post our Facebook posts into that local community group, and suddenly we go from a story being in front of like a few dozen eyes to 19,000 eyes essentially, and that helps. So that's what we did when we had open days and things like that. And it means you start developing relationships with people like Pete Nash, who used to work at Co-op and was involved in like the community cohesion and co-ops funding and things like that. So our club was one of the co-op causes, and we had, I think, a couple of £1,000 over 2 years when we were one of the co-op's causes, as a cause in the local community to benefit from co-op money. And so Pete Nash was like a very, lovely guy and ally to the club in helping us do that. And he had his own profile where he would post stories, and we've got Ellie here on the left with people from the local food cycle and the litter picking groups, with Pete in the local co-op. The other reason it's nice to post into these local community groups is that whenever you make Facebook posts, obviously people can comment on them and respond to them. So when, if you say you've got an open day coming up, people will typically say, oh, can I bring my dad or my nan or my son or whatever? And you just need to look out for those little comments so you can respond and say, yes, the more the merrier and all that kind of thing. And you open up these little conversations. You often find that, when you've put out a story, you've missed a little detail and somebody will remind you and say, oh, you missed the time off. Oh, okay, sorry, yeah, and you put the time in. But yeah, as I say, Ruby Community Group has got 19,000 members. And actually, there are a few of these community groups around here. So there's one called Rednall Community Group, which is basically an overlapping area. There's Rubery Past and Present as well. So you could probably, with the story, if you found a few places to post it online, you could probably, get 100,000, and get it to a group that you might have as many as 100,000 people, depending on where you are. If you're in a rural community and your local community group covers a smaller area, that's less likely to be the case, maybe. But we post, as I say, so some of our stories are obviously aimed more at our own bowlers. But this is another example of a post that we have had where we've put it into the local community group, because we were saying spectators are welcome at our matches as usual. Why not come and support your local club? We'll have the kettle on and we've got benches. And this aerial photo happened to come from the fact that one of our members had a drone and he sent it up and took some photos, and we've got like a nice lot of photos that we can use for these kind of things. I don't know how many of your clubs do have a kind of genuine open door policy where you would welcome people wandering in to join for a drink and that kind of thing. Obviously, those of you that are based at pubs and social clubs, that might well be the case. We're in a park. We've got a fence around the edges, but it's incredible the amount of local people who either claim that they didn't know we were there, even though they've walked past us every day, or didn't know how to get in, or didn't know that they could come in, and all this kind of thing. So this presence online really helps literally opening the doors and getting people in. Um, there's a fair amount of shouting hello to people who are walking their dogs as well, who are walking past in the park. And we've attracted bowlers in exactly that way, and having that kind of presence of being welcoming and with on all those levels, online and offline. But the online really does help. And then the final thing I was going to talk about before I open for sort of questions and any other demonstration is local press, local newspapers. So, I'm not quite sure if it's still the case, but at least, so I used to teach journalism at Birmingham City University, and we used to talk about, the crisis in local media and local press, and part of that was the editorial staff at a lot of these platforms and newspapers were dwindling and needed, as much help as they could in finding stories. So you might think, well, my local newspaper is already ran full of stories already. They don't need me to come along with some random story about some bowls club that then won't be interested in. Likelihood is, if you send them something, they will use it and it will end up in the paper. If it has a good visual element and a quirky element, you might even end up on the front page. That's happened. So front page, third page, something like that. Um, and really, it's just a case of finding your local paper, which here is a Bromsgrove Standard, and going to the contacts page and deciding whether you want to email if they have got a sports contact. It might be that your story is a sports story, but I would imagine it's probably more likely just to be a general story where you can, email the editor or phone up the editor or whoever. Because it's more of a community-based story, more likely. And we have had the photos here where it says in pictures open day at Rubery's RSJC. They actually sent a photographer to us. Like in some of these stories, we provide our own photos, but they actually sent a photographer, and we've given them the details, the bare bones of the story, and they've written the story around it. So we've had them promoting an open day before it happened, and then covering the success of the open day once it had happened. So 2 weeks in a row, we were in the local paper and on their local Facebook page as well. Again, you'll be looking for stories with an angle. So, a charity event where here, St Mary's Hospice, everybody had to wear pink for who that played in league matches on that day. So it's got a good visual element to it. And then you've got the amount of money that was raised and things like that. If you're appearing as part of a local, a community fair or something like that, why not make sure you get photos taken and get that covered somehow? But what you will want to do for a press release to send to them when you've worked out who the correct person is to email is, like I say, you want to find an angle for your story. So it might be an appeal that you're doing. Sadly, a lot of the time, the public profile of local bowls clubs and local sport clubs comes into the community when they are burned down, burgled, all that kind of thing. And it's interesting how a community will rally and come to the support and help a club that they knew nothing about and were not involved with, but they can sympathise with them because they've suffered from a fire or vandalism or, something like that. I'm not saying you want to burn down your club just to get public profile, obviously. But those are the kind of stories that sometimes uh, do gain traction because it's a strong community angle. Celebrations, like it might be you have two bowlers that are both turning 90 in the same week or something like that. I don't know. Or we got them to run a story. Is it here? Yeah, here you go. RSJC Crown Green Bowls Club celebrate successful season with triple promotion. So three of our clubs were promoted in their divisions. So that sounds quite impressive for us. It is quite impressive for us with our 15 teams that we have. Um, and whatever you write, the wording doesn't need to be perfect. They're not expecting you to be a journalist who knows how to write a story. But what they would find helpful is accurate details and a sense of what you think will be useful and interesting to your average local reader. And then they will write a story around that. And they might send it back to you to double check the details were okay. When you send them these details in a kind of press release form, when I do this, I make up a quote from our secretary, and she says, "Yeah, that's fine, whatever." And because it's nice to have something that's like a direct quote from somebody at the club who's involved in whatever this event is. You can always email the person out first to ask them what kind of word count they need, but they will probably say they need at the very most 200 words. And like I say, they will always. I thought I'd written quite a good press release recently, but they still configure it in the format of whatever they do. They made it into more paragraphs essentially and things like that. And I'm not offended by that. I know that that's going to work better for them on their website and on their newspaper. And I would also include a selection of photos they can choose from because they will know what works best. And depending on where it appears in print, if they want to put it in print, they might choose one photo over another one. And just clarify that they can use any of them. And if they need to credit somebody, just let them know that as well. So to conclude, and then we'll go to any questions and a bit of demo if you like. I'm not saying you need to do all of these things. You don't need to have a website, a Facebook page, and constantly be badgering your local papers to get you in there. But I'd say if you attempt one or two of these at least, I think you would see a bit of traction, whether it's trying to get your profile up amongst local councillors, or whether it's trying to get your bowlers to volunteer a bit more around the green, or whether it's to attract new bowlers. I think you'd probably find some, traction there. Things to think about are if you do commit to creating a website or a Facebook page, you'll need someone with a little bit of time in the week, especially if it's a Facebook page, to write and post the stories or just post the story. Even if you're just putting a photo of the week up every week, somebody needs to, have that responsibility to do that. Because the problem is if you create a Facebook page but then don't post anything on it, then you've got a presence, but it makes it look like your club has died a little bit because nothing's happened in the last 6 months. It might even look like you're not bowling at all. So just think about that. What I've got a few people at the club now who I know will send me photos from other teams that I don't play in because otherwise it always feels like these same 3 or 4 teams that I play in where the photos come from. So I get stuff coming in from other people now. And they send me stuff on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is our friend as well at our club. We use that a lot, and I'm sure a lot of you will do. And then I suppose the final thing I'd say is if you're going to do this, be prepared for success because you will attract people. So the worst case scenario might be that you put a bit of work in and nothing happens as a result to start with, but I think that's probably unlikely. I think you'll find a bit of, traction. The best case scenario might be that you attract lots of new bowlers. But then for some clubs, that might also be the worst case scenario because if you attract too many, then you've got to go through team selection and you might, if you've got limited teams already and you feel like you're at capacity, then what happens to your current bowlers if you've suddenly got hundreds of new bowlers that come in and they turn out to be amazing and you're having to make quite awkward team selections. But that's a good position to be in, I suppose. But just be prepared for the impact of, being out there in the world and having a bit more presence, I suppose. Okay, so at this point, I am going to stop sharing, but I can still come back to a browser in a second if I want to demonstrate anything. I'm going to allow you, yes, you're allowed to unmute yourselves as far as I can see. So if I've got any questions, I will quite happily take questions and show you things for the remaining 17 minutes or so.
Um, if no one else wants to speak, Jerome, I'll just say that I genuinely found that really interesting. That's a lot of information I hadn't heard before.
Okay.
And did you say that previously you had worked with sort of like a newspaper and had that sort of background?
I didn't, but I've taught journalism, but I've never
Ah,
worked for a paper myself.
well, that was really fascinating, that angle you shared, because I think, for myself, I dominantly work in a space where it's like social media. So it's always about, the social media profiles. And actually, I had never once thought about those angles that you'd shared. So that
Yeah.
has really given me some food for thought. So thanks ever so much. I think that's definitely a space probably I'd consider because we've got a few things, we're quite an older club, as in we've been around for over 100 years. That's an
Hmm.
interesting, certain things like that that actually I hadn't considered to utilize. So that, fantastic. Thanks ever so much for sharing.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, a lot of clubs do have interesting history to share, whether it's
Mm.
around old members, um, uh,
We do fundraising days,
yeah.
like all that sort of stuff. So hadn't really done that. We have got one for our actual um club that we're associated with, i.e. the actual social element, but hadn't
Mm.
considered doing one myself. So that's definitely given me some food for thought. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that's the other thing. You may find that you are a club that is associated to or physically attached to an existing social club or a pub
Mm,
or something like that. So, for example, the British Oak in Birmingham, the British Oak pub has its own Facebook page, but I know that they somebody set up a page also for the actual bowls club um, that is a part of attached to the pub, and so they have their own one. So they kind of have a kind of co-joint presence. But I would never assume, for example, that the British Oak pub is going to say anything about the bowling because they don't. It's not in their interest. So that's why there's a separate Facebook page. Anyone else?
Hi,
Uh,
Jerome. I just want to add a couple of things, if I may. Just for people, once you get attraction, you need to have something for those people to do. Jerome has highlighted the thing that um, people won't automatically expect to be playing in teams, in leagues from day one.
mm,
So I know at RSJC they had a dedicated social evening where there was a few experienced players who would welcome the people, give them the equipment, get them
yeah,
started. So just plan ahead and say, right, when are we going to get people that are interested to our club to be part of that?
yeah,
Um, so the other thing would be also engage with your local active partnerships because they like to promote clubs. If you've got an event, let them know and they'll pop it on their website so they can share that information. And there's another group called the Active Wellbeing Society because there's a lot of current promotion through the Department of Health and Culture, where we're trying to get Bowl for Health back on the agenda. So bowls is great for well-being.
mm,
All the benefits of bowls you guys will know, but it's telling other people what the benefits are, and you can do that. So we've just had Auntie Fred turn up after a hip operation, and she's moving again.
mm,
We've done this with the Active Wellbeing Society at Tipton, where they're doing regular stories about how people have benefited from the Victoria Park Green being open again. So it's the only time I get out of the house. It's a
mm.
great story.
Yeah, I mean, that also reminds me of we've never properly done this, but I might do this as the season starts again. We've got a surgery, a doctor's surgery on our street, in fact, and we've often thought we need to make them a bit more aware of the fact that, social, not just social prescribing, but like you say, like a bit of like physical activity prescribing. If we leave, we've got some flyers that we made a few years ago that we've still got some of, I think, to give to the doctors to say, look, we are here and we would welcome, mentioning people. So Peter, yeah,
Absolutely. The social prescribing, Jerome, is something where the club would need to make sure they've got something that they can provide,
yeah,
say, 6 weeks of regular activity, open for a couple of hours. There is opportunities to charge a couple of quid to tea and cake and that sort of
yeah,
thing. So that does help. Local libraries definitely works.
yeah, we've
Tipton
done that.
Local Library, not only have they got the walking group, cycling group, and they've attracted those people onto the bowling green as well through the
Mhm.
connections of the local library. So, connect with your local resources like the libraries does work.
Yeah. Sorry, it's not Peter, is it? But whoever the lady is who's not Peter, hi.
It's not Peter, it's Pam.
Right.
Yeah, I found that very interesting too because our club last season just started a development group away from the main committee. And we're now just doing the things or trying to do the things that you've mentioned there about the web page and the Facebook
Mm.
page. We have our own Facebook page, but it's not public, and so therefore we're not attracting the right sort of people. It's just for our members,
Right.
um,
So that
and we
sounds like
start.
that sounds like a group. Earlier I was
Yeah,
talking group, so that's fine. But a
yeah.
page is what would be outward facing. Yeah.
And we just started open competitions last year, which were very successful. And we've
Right.
set up 4 more for this coming season that are already full.
Wow.
And we really need to sort of open up that Facebook page too, because people did, like you mentioned earlier, people
Mm.
didn't know where how our green was. Um, they
So
just didn't know we existed.
so the interesting thing is, if you make a Facebook page and you were to make a post about one of your comps, there are also Crown Green groups
Yeah,
online. There's one specifically that you might be aware of, which is called Crown Green Bowling Competitions, I think. And
yeah,
if you post that story that you've made into that, then
yeah,
suddenly you'll find you'll get loads of people sign up probably.
yeah,
But it's again that thing of you'll suddenly find where what was initially just going to be a finals day, you need qualifier nights as well because of because of the
yeah.
success of promoting it.
Yeah,
So
but we haven't got that big with them yet. They're just sort of 1 day things that,
yeah, well,
you know.
like we say, be careful of your own success.
But no, that's very interesting what you've said this
Yeah,
evening. I've found that quite good.
that's great. Thank you.
You know,
Um, Hi, David. Yeah,
yeah. It's one of my bugbears actually that when you're recruiting, that you make it clear as to what you're expecting your recruits to do.
yeah,
You're looking for people who will become crown green bowlers and hopefully get to a reasonable standard. Um, my experience is with our club that there've been too many people who've said to their neighbour, "Oh, come and join us. We're a good social club," and
yeah,
they come for a cup of tea and never want to play bowls.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting because you were right. It's about what your expectation is,
Yeah,
and if it's if you're a club where you genuinely need more bowlers to make up your teams, then that's something you can, be a bit more aggressive in how you advertise, the club online and things like that. Um, so we're quite happy to have people at all those different levels of the scale. Um, we've got lots of people who come socially, and we've got a few who we've got some really really fabulous members, and their contribution is they are a fantastic card marker. They will give you good advice on what's on. But for a couple of years now, No, no, we are invited them onto the green to bowl league again with us this year. And they said, no, I don't want to because that's my contribution. And actually, I'm quite happy with that because we've got enough people for teams and people make themselves valuable in lots of different ways. But I guess I can understand your frustration if you've got lots and lots of social bowlers, but you need to try and fill up your teams. But yeah.
On the other hand, we've had quite a lot of success with men in particular
Mm.
who come, never played bowls in their lives, and have got a natural ability.
Yeah.
And the one guy became club champion in his second year.
Well, there you go. And it's often, I mean, actually, if you're looking to recruit bowlers, the kind of places you might also get to post these stories, cross post these stories for you, are places like golf clubs, darts clubs, snooker clubs. Because for me, we see a lot of people who've come from golf to bowls, and there's something about that kind of having to hit something in a direction, a certain amount of weight that kind of works somehow.
And being
Um,
able to read a green.
yeah, exactly. Reading greens, things like that. So yeah, I suppose the other thing I was going to say about social bowlers not necessarily wanting to bowl league, maybe this is getting out of a bit of a tangent really, but maybe there's something about making your league bowling feel like the social bowling. So what can you add to that makes it feel like the social part of it, if you see what I mean? Cakes, tea, biscuits, all of that. But I'm sure you do that anyway. But
Yeah.
anybody else?
I mean, to offer a suggestion today, the thing is with that one person who comes as a guest, they may know other people who may then become a bowler. So every new member is a potential exponential because it transfers, and that's happened. I know at Jerome's club, where somebody turned up, they invited the neighbours, they've invited three other people, and all of a sudden you've got 5 people turning up from one introduction. So you do have to be careful. Yeah. Social bowling is probably important in the early stages because if people are turning up playing against competent league bowlers and not enjoying the game because they've been destroyed to 2 or 3 shots, then that's not the attractive sport that they want to play in. They want to be competitive at their own level. And there are ways that a club can do that within themselves.
Yeah. I mean, and we tend to say in your first year, don't expect to be league bowling unless you somehow prove yourself to be really decent, like properly decent and competent and understanding the rules and come to some league games and watch them. But we tend to say to people, you're in your first year, you're kind of bedding in socially and understanding the green and weight and all of that and the rules. And then let's get you into a league match in the second year kind of thing. And that works for most people. As long as people come along with that understanding, we make little information sheets when people first join and say, look, this is the deal. This is what we're all about and everything. This is what your money gets you. And people are, as long as there's that transparency, people tend to be quite happy, really. So, or very happy, I'd say. Anyone else?
So to make over here, more people are sitting there. We've got a few more minutes.
So
the other thing you can do for a club is what's making your club attractive to people. When I say that, I mean, have you got your safeguarding in place? Have you got a coach in place? Who do they contact? What's your organisation skill? So just have that little package ready for people. So if somebody turns up, they know what they're getting. So that's just an expectation, what people expect those things to be in place before they'll turn up to your club.
Yeah. If there's no more questions, I'll leave it there. My email, if anybody wants to email with a question that they didn't want to chuck out now, is jerometurner77@gmail. I will share my slides, send them to fill, and so I think that will mean that we can circulate them then, won't it?
Yeah.
This will have been recorded, so we'll also share the recording. Thanks, Elaine. Thanks everybody for your questions, by the way. That was very, very nice and genuinely nice to get questions, because the amount of times you do these things, sometimes you go to questions and get nothing. It's horrible. So thank you. And then the plan is we will let everybody know when we're doing this follow-up session, and it will probably be something like late February, so that it will have given you time to think about, okay, what can we actually do? Do we want to set up a Facebook page? And I would encourage you to give it a shot first, and see how you get on. And when we come back to do this session later on, come to us with your stories of how you got on and show us what you've got and see what kind of help we can offer. And it can be a bit like like I say, like a little clinic, and we can share a bit from that. And it will just give you kind of a bit of a presence and a setup for the coming season, because I'm guessing most of you open up around, I don't know, late March, like Rubery, we open late March.
Yeah.
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 And then leagues.
Jerome,
Yeah.
can I just ask you, would you be able to send a copy of those slides out if we paid for the?
We can do that.
Yeah.
I've got email addresses for you all, so that I can do
Do
that.
you mean email?
You can send them through on my email, yes.
Yeah.
You can print them out, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Quite happy to share those. So I'll send that.
Yeah.
I'll send that. What I'll do is I'll send it as a PowerPoint, but I'll also send it as a PDF.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Because then it's PDFs are easier to share, and it means people don't have to open it in PowerPoint then.
Yeah.
And you'll have the recording of this as well, so you can watch it hundreds and hundreds of times over and over and over.
Okay,
Or
thank
share
you.
it with your club members who couldn't make it maybe tonight, or people at neighbouring clubs that might be interested. But as I say, it's not the only way we've gone from 35 to 80 members, because some of it, as I say, is shouting to people through the fence and saying, come on, don't just watch me, come around here and have a go. One of the things that we've done that's a very key thing is we've developed the female membership of the club, and a couple of years ago, for the first time ever, we had a women's team in one of the women's leagues, in one of the ladies' leagues, and they went from one division to the next. So there's two divisions in the league that they play in, and they're in the first division now. And we have 4 ladies county bowlers now at the club. So no male county bowlers. Some of our strongest bowlers are the women bowlers now, because we have quite a large contingency now, and that's been like a great development in the club, really. So yeah. Right. Okay. Should we leave it there?
Yeah.
Bang on time, 8:30. Off just in time for what's on telly at 9. It's probably Jungle.
you.
Can I just do
whatever
my little
else.
sales promo of the club activation
Go.
session that we've got? Yeah, it's we've got a little pot from the British Crown Green pound per player development fund, which we're using to put on some sessions. There's a session in the morning and a session in the afternoon. The morning one is basically Coach Bowles Club Activator course, and the session 2 is the Club Secretary Committee support. That's not till April. We'll be putting some more notifications out about that. 20th, I'm just looking to see if I can find the date on this sheet, but I think it's the 20th of April. It's Saturday, and we're having that at Selly Park Tavern. We are going to charge a small fee for it. It's normally costs about £40, but we're only going to charge a tenner because we've been subsidised by British Crown Green. So that's a benefit to the Warwick and Worcester people, basically. So yeah, get in touch. Watch out for our newsletters as well in Warwick and Worcester, because we do put together. Our mate Jerome's undersells himself, but once a month he puts together a newsletter, which has got lots of articles. I put quite a bit into it. We get contributions from others on the Warwick and Worcester committee as well, where we just put a story about the county team or a story about the juniors, just basically what we're doing. And it's a little interesting read with lots of links to other things that will help other clubs build what they need to know.
Yeah, when we share
that's my sales pitch, Jerome. So from me, I'd like to say thanks, Jerome, for putting this session together. It's really appreciated. You will need to let go of the hosting so I can make sure the recording's done. So at some stage when we all say cheerio, don't leave Jerome until you've made me the host again.
Okay. How do I make you the host again, then, Phil? Or right click on you?
I think something like that. Yeah.
Make host. So is it the Warwick and Worcester one or the Warwick and Worcester meeting host one?
Warwick and Worcester meeting.
Make host. There you go. Make haste. Making host. There you go. Right. Thank you, everybody.
Well done for keeping on time, Jerome.
Been lovely. Right. Thank you very much. See you later. Right. So we can all drop out now, I guess, can we, Phil?
Yeah, you can all leave now. I'm back.
Bye-bye. Happy Christmas.